What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and now that we've hit the new year, I, like many other people, are making their New Year's resolutions. Of course, I'm kind of making some stereotypical New Year's resolutions, like I want to work out more, I want to eat better, I want to read more, all that good stuff. However, also being a huge gamer, I am also making my gaming resolutions, and I've made a few doozies this year. And of course, since I'm making this video, I want to talk about those to kind of keep myself accountable for next year. When I make this same video, I can tell you all the ones that I made this year that I didn't do. So without further ado, let's rock. But before we get to my 2025 gaming resolutions, I did make this video last year. Of course, I made a lot of lofty goals and resolutions last year on this same video, so I do want to spend a couple of minutes at the beginning of this video kind of eating shit, talking about the resolutions that I made that honestly I didn't really do well last year. And I will say that I do think that I have some legit reasons why I didn't hit the goals that I wanted to hit. I guess you will be the ultimate judge of that. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, if these excuses are legit or not. But I also want to say before we get started that I do try, and this is kind of my general philosophy with resolutions in general, is I do want to kind of make them a little bit more lofty than just like, oh, I can get that one done easy. Like if I'm done with a resolution by like March or April, then it doesn't feel like I made it lofty enough. So I do think that kind of the act of trying to do these resolutions is kind of the point of them. But that's all fine and good, considering I didn't do hardly anything this year that I set out to do. So we will start off with the two resolutions that I basically didn't do at all. Unfortunately, the first one is actually the one that I take the most serious, and that is my backlog video game list that I want to complete during the year. And I, like most gamers, I would assume, has hundreds and hundreds of video games that I haven't played on my backlog catalog that I want to eventually get to. Like, I mean, if a game comes out and it looks remotely good and I just haven't gotten to it, I definitely put it on that list. So that list is constantly growing, and I'm never gonna truly be done with it because video games come out so frequently and there's so many good ones, and I try to play everything that looks interesting to me. So I'm never going to be truly done with my backlog, but I always try to put at least 5, and I always try to pre-select them. So it's not just like 5 random games that I pick in November and December when I remember that I didn't play any of these. I try to play these specific 5 games. And like I said, and as you can see on the screen, I really didn't do a whole lot of these 5 games. And honestly, I didn't beat any of them. I only played 2 of them. I played Alan Wake, the first one, and then I played Brutal Legend. And both Alan Wake and Brutal Legend I didn't beat, and I didn't really feel like I played a ton of them. I played more Brutal Legend than I did Alan Wake, which is surprising because Alan Wake is kind of a survival horror game, and if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I'm a pretty big fan of survival horror. So I actually thought I was going to dig Alan Wake a lot more than I actually did, and I think that's ultimately why I kind of set it down after a few hours, and I was like, oh well, I'll get back to that. I want to play this other game, but I'll get back to Alan Wake. And of course, as I was thinking that, I was thinking also, I was like, no, you're not. You know you're never gonna circle back to this game. So unfortunately, that kind of was the case for Alan Wake, and more so with Brutal Legends, it was more of I played it for about 5-6 hours, and it was a fine game. I thought Jack Black's performance was great. I thought the graphics were okay. I mean, I just kind of had to remind myself that it was an older game, but that stuff doesn't necessarily bother me too much. I think that it was one of those games where I think it did everything it was trying to do okay, but I don't think it did anything amazing, and it tried to do too much, I think. And so after about 5-ish hours, I set it down, and I never really even had any desire to go back to it. Now, The Warriors is where what I think is a pretty legit excuse comes in. So I tried to play this game. I really was looking forward to playing this game. I bought it a few months before I made the gaming resolution last year, and I have a PS5. I bought it on the PlayStation Store, and PS5 is supposed to be backwards compatible. However, I started playing this game, and the intro is awesome because the intro is exactly like the game, or I almost said the game, the movie. I'm a huge fan of the movie. At one point in my life, it was my go-to answer for what's your favorite movie of all time. I love the movie. I almost said game again. And the intro to the game is exactly like the movie. And so I was already digging it. But as soon as that intro is over, it goes to the screen where it wants you to hit a button that I literally don't have a corresponding button on my PS5. I hit every button I could find. I even looked it up to see if anybody else was having this issue. But of course, this is such an old game that really nobody's dealing with this issue. And so I wanted to go back because I do have a PS3, but it's in the other room. And I was like, well, maybe I'll try it next weekend and I'll try to play it on my PS3. And that just never happened. I got distracted by something else. And so I never played the Warriors. So I do think that that's kind of a more of a legit excuse than I'm going to have the rest of this video. But I did try to play the Warriors. Now, Alan Wake 2, obviously, because I didn't beat Alan Wake and I didn't really get into Alan Wake the way that I thought I was going to. I just never got around to that one, just flat out, just didn't even try it. I did buy it on discount recently, a couple of months ago, for like, I think Xbox was having like a winter sale or whatever. And so I bought it then, but I still haven't even touched it yet. I haven't even downloaded it. I did download Sleeping Dogs, but I never even started it. So all in all, even though I did play Alan Wake and Brutal Legend for a little bit, this was the most disappointing year as far as my backlog games were concerned. All right, on to the other resolution that I basically didn't do. And if you thought the backlog games one was bad, this one is terrible. So originally when I started this channel a few years ago, it was actually just a way to promote my Twitch channel, Patty McNinja, which I don't know why I promoted it. I haven't like streamed in like, I would say 2 years, which is kind of the point of this resolution, was I wanted to get back into streaming. However, when I started this channel to promote that Twitch channel, I actually found out that I just enjoyed making this type of content more than I did streaming. And so when I got busy, I focused more of the energy, the little free time I had on this channel, and streaming kind of went away. And so last year I wanted to get back into streaming again, but I knew that I couldn't get back into it full time because I have this channel that I love doing. I have a podcast, The Nerd You're Looking For. I also, of course, have a full-time job and a family and all that good stuff. My wife would not be happy that I listed the podcast before I listed her and our dogs, but that's beside the point. She doesn't watch these videos, so I think I'm safe there. So I knew I couldn't get back into it full time. So I thought I kind of had a good compromise last year with this resolution, that since I do reviews on this channel and I kind of have to binge the games that I'm reviewing, because games will come out either on Tuesday or Friday typically, and I want to get that review out by early the following week. And I'm not cool, like I'm not a big shot, so I don't get review copies. If you want to get me to a point where I can get review copies, definitely hit that subscribe button and ding that bell. But as of right now, I play the games when everybody else plays the games. So I really kind of have to hustle if I want to get the review out in a reasonable amount of time. So I'm playing these games a ton. The weekend before a review comes out, that's pretty much what I'm doing, is I'm just playing that game. So I'm playing the game for hours and hours. So I might as well be kind of making other content about it on my Twitch channel. So I might as well be streaming it. And when I made that resolution, it made sense to me, but then I didn't really think about logistically how that was going to work. So at the time, my rig, my gaming PC, just really couldn't support the idea of streaming and recording gameplay at the same time. I tried it. I did a couple of test runs and I thought my computer was going to explode. It really didn't like it. It didn't record very good gameplay. And I was like, well, if I have to choose between streaming and putting out a good review, obviously that choice is pretty easy for me. So I chose to not stream. Now, eventually my gaming setup, I had to get a brand new gaming PC because my old one kind of shit the bed on me. So now, because I've upgraded, I probably could do it, but the idea of trying to do that again just doesn't really interest me anymore. So I think the idea of me streaming is kind of dead. Maybe if I get a little bit of a bigger audience, I'll start streaming like the big events events like the Game Awards and that sort of thing. So I purposely started off this section of the video talking about the resolutions from last year that I didn't do, because I wanted to end this section on a positive note with the resolutions, the last two that I actually did complete. I'm quite proud of my progress with these two resolutions. The first being I wanted to finally hit 100,000 gamer score on Xbox. So I don't really feel like it's necessary to be brand loyal to an Xbox or any console for that matter. I think it's kind of silly to be brand loyal to a console. Just play the console has the games that you want to play. Now, I am a grown up with a lot of disposable income, so I do have a lot of different consoles, but that wasn't always the case. And when the PlayStation 2 and Xbox both came out when I was in high school, I picked the Xbox, and I have had an Xbox, like an Xbox 360, an Xbox One, all that stuff since the original Xbox. Now, since then, I have gone back and got a PS4, a PS5, a Nintendo Switch, all that good stuff. I have basically all the consoles, but that wasn't always the case. And so I've been in the Xbox Microsoft ecosystem for the longest. So I'm quite proud of my gamer score. Now, I'm not quite the achievement hunter that I used to be when I was in junior high and high school and in college even. I really cared about gamer score, and I've kind of fallen off of that a little bit. And so at one point, I think I was in college, I had like 60,000, and in the like 15 years since, I've only gotten like 40,000. So I definitely did want to hit that barrier, that threshold this year, and I did it, but barely. So I think I started off with like 80,000 and change this year when I made the resolution, and so I only had 20,000 to go, and I basically got it under the wire. I realized, I think it was like New Year's Eve, that I was at like 97,000 and change, and so I bought a couple of those like cheap, like really bad platformers that only exist for like diehard achievement hunters to get 1,000 or 2,000 or even 3,000 gamer score. So I spent like $10, bought a couple of those just to get myself over that 100,000 threshold. But I got it. I'm proud that I got it because it was one of the resolutions from last year that I actually completed. All right, so for the last one, and this one is kind of more of a feeling, and I definitely said this in this video last year, is that it was going to be really hard for me to quantify this last one, and ultimately I think I did a pretty good job at it. I still have a little bit to go, but I think for the most part 2024 was a step in the right direction for me. And the resolution that I wanted to achieve last year is I wanted to kind of live in video games more. And what I mean by that is kind of a weird way to say that, but I kind of wanted to get my money's worth from video games, because and this channel is a part of it too, to be completely honest, because I'm constantly trying to get my review out as quickly as possible, because that's just the YouTube game. And if you don't put out your review quick enough, like, people just kind of forget about games pretty quickly. And so I do feel like I do have to kind of binge games a little bit more, just the nature of YouTube. But I do feel like it's a bad habit that I've had for years before I started doing YouTube, which is I want to play everything. And so I would buy a game, play it for a little bit, and the next shiny game would come out, and then I would buy that one, and I would never really feel like I got my money's worth of that first game. And so I've been trying really hard, especially this past year, of getting more of my money's worth, kind of living in games, getting every ounce of gameplay and content I can from that game. And I've definitely took a huge step in the right direction. I played a shit ton of Elden Ring this year, mostly because of the awesome DLC Shadow of the Erdtree, but also I just wanted to replay it leading up to Shadow of the Erdtree, and I really fell in love with that game, and I really kind of immersed myself in the game. But even other games like that I reviewed, like Black Myth or Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and even games I didn't really like that much, like Star Wars Outlaws, even after I was done with the review, which normally when I'm done with it, I kind of, especially if I've beaten it and it was like a full review and it wasn't a first impressions video, I typically kind of set it aside because I'm moving on to the next video or the next whatever game that I want to play. And I never really, again, feel like I got my money's worth. And so I've purposely made sure that I've kind of circled back to a lot of those games. And again, not to make too many excuses about my backlog, but that might have been another reason why I didn't get to play as much backlog games as I wanted to, because I spent way more time in these other games, which again, I definitely appreciated that I did. I feel like I got way more of my money's worth of the games that I played this year. I just didn't get to the other backlog games as a result. All right, so on to the meat and potatoes of this video, my 2025 gaming resolutions. And I'll be straightforward with this first one. It's pretty simple. I want to go up 20,000 on my gamer score pretty much every year. I might tweak that number like in later years, but I think 20,000 is a good number. So I just hit 100,000 just barely. Like I said, it was like New Year's Eve when I hit that 100,000 mark. So I want to be at 120, at least 120 by the end of next year. And since I didn't do very well with my backlog video game resolution last year, I decided to tweak that resolution a little bit going into 2025. And I actually got this idea while watching the Game Awards in December, because Astrobot won and I never actually played that game. I was thinking to myself, I wonder how many other Game Awards Game of the Year I've never played before. And so I looked it up, and surprisingly, there was only 3 games that I never played that won their Game of the Year. The first being Dragon Age Inquisition, which coincidentally was the first award given, like the first Game of the Year award given. I think it was in 2014. So I've not played that game. I've not played Overwatch, which is kind of embarrassing, but that style of game just really isn't my thing. I did try to play Marvel Rivals. I know a lot of people like that game quite a lot. I played it, it's cool. I like the MCU. I grew up on Marvel Comics, but I'm just not a huge fan of that genre, so I probably won't play that a ton. And then, of course, Astrobot. Unfortunately, I can't play Overwatch. Like, that's not a game that you can play anymore, because they basically replaced that with Overwatch 2, which didn't win Game of the Year, so I'm kind of giving myself that cop-out, because I really don't like those types of games. It's just not my style of game. So I didn't really want to play Overwatch 2. So I'm just going to kind of give that as my go-to excuse for not playing Overwatch. So really, I'm just saying I want to play Dragon Age Inquisition, which I know a lot of people love those games. My brother was a huge fan of that franchise. So I am kind of embarrassed that I never played that game. But I never did. And so I'm definitely excited about playing that game. And I do want to spoil a video that I'm going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. I have played Astrobot as of recording. I haven't beaten it yet, but I have played it and I've really enjoyed it so far. So those are the 2 games that I've never played that won the Game Awards Game of the Year. So I definitely want to check those off my list for sure. And my third gaming resolution for 2025 is a little bit more personal. I might go a little bit longer with this resolution, but one of my favorite activities, obviously, is gaming. It's one of my favorite hobbies. I have a lot of hobbies, but gaming is definitely my number one hobby. It's definitely the hobby that takes the most of my time. And I do kind of feel bad doing this YouTube channel because I'm constantly either talking about video games or I'm playing video games in this room and I'm kind of by myself. It's a very isolating hobby. However, my wife, who also I love hanging out with, is not a huge gamer, but she does play certain types of games. And I do really enjoy playing games with her. And I wish, if I had one wish, is that I wish she was more into gaming. And because when we do play games together, it's always really fun. I do really enjoy it. I love when a new Zelda game comes out because she's really into those games. And it's one of the few like gaming kind of in that Venn diagram that we have in common is Zelda games. So we always play those games, not really together because you can't really play those games together, but like there's overlap where we can talk about like, oh, we're doing this or we're this boss battle or whatever. And it's always really fun. We played It Takes Two together and that was a blast. So I definitely want to make a resolution to take more time and try to find more games like that I can play with her this year. I know she's a big Animal Crossing fan. She really loved when the new Animal Crossing came out a few years ago, and we played a ton of that together. I let her create the island and I would kind of visit her island. It was so much fun. And there's a Lord of the Rings kind of Animal Crossing sort of game called Tales of the Shire that's coming out. And I am super excited for it because not only am I a huge Lord of the Rings fan, but she loves those types of games. So I'm pretty sure I can get her into that game. And so I'm definitely excited about that. But also I mentioned It Takes Two. The developer that made that game is also coming out with a new game called Split Fiction that I'm definitely looking forward to. So we're going to play that game for sure. Whether I can get her into Tales of the Shire is a whole other question, but I definitely am looking forward to playing that game. I'm definitely looking to maybe move one of my consoles into the living room so we could game together a little bit more. So that's definitely a resolution that I am very set on doing this year because it's my favorite hobby. It's my favorite person. I definitely want to do more of that with her in 2025. All right, so my last gaming resolution for 2025, and I'm going to be quick with this one, and I put it in air quotes for a reason. So when you think of gaming resolutions based on the content that I normally put out on this channel, you rightfully assume that I'm talking about video games. But I also have a lot of other hobbies, and one of them is I'm a huge Magic the Gathering player, especially Commander. Of course, when I say Magic, I mean Commander because that's what everybody means. But I love playing Magic. I love playing Commander. I got into it about 4 or 5 years ago and I've been absolutely obsessed since then. But kind of going back to a resolution I made in 2024, kind of living in games more, getting my money's worth. I definitely have a bad habit of just building more and more Commander decks, and I don't play the decks that I have that much because typically I'll build them and I'll kind of get that rush from building the deck, and then I think it's going to do well, and then I'll play it a couple of times and it doesn't quite do what I want it to do, and it doesn't work as well as I thought it was going to work, and then I kind of set it to the side and I don't play that deck anymore. And what I want to focus on, instead of spending money buying new decks and constantly building new decks, I think I want to try to just upgrade the decks that I already have, make them usable, instead of trying to just build new decks and think that that's going to be my solution. Maybe I just need to get better at playing Magic. That's also probably part of it. But instead of spending more and more money building more and more decks, I should probably make the decks I already have better. And so I'm not saying I'm not going to build new decks, because I mean, if you play Magic, you know you're going to build more decks. That's just how it works. But I definitely want to spend more of my time and money upgrading the decks I already have. So I know that one's a little bit different. I wanted to have 4 resolutions this year like I did last year, and I really couldn't think of one that I liked, and this was the one that I definitely wanted to do the most of all the other ones I had thought of. And so I know it doesn't really fit this channel super well, but it is something that I'm into, and it's kind of video game adjacent. I mean, it's definitely gaming, but it's not your typical video gaming sort of thing. But I love Magic and I wanted to talk about it. So that is my last gaming resolution for 2025. But of course, those are just my gaming resolutions for 2025. I'd love to hear a couple of yours in the comments down below. Of course, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that like button, as the kids say. Definitely consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, ding that bell. That way you're notified every time I post another video. I post weekly gaming related content, so if you like that content, which you obviously do if you've made it this far in the video, definitely consider subscribing and dinging that bell. But until next video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy, and we were just talking and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you?